Zack Snyder continues to tease. I'm sure it's all a coincidence that he's going through his old photographs of, Ben Affleck as Batman and Henry Cavill as Superman and all that. But here he goes. He did another one. There's a cool image of Ben Affleck's Batman in the nightmare gear, you know. And boy, it gets a lot of attention, even from Gal Gadot. So here's the other earlier one that he did of uh Ben Affleck's Batman, and then someone knows, oh, look who liked it, Gal Gadot. So yeah, people are noticing this. Yeah, huh. All coincidental, of course. But anyway, Zack Snyder continues his streak of sharing behind the scenes DC images, dropping another striking black and white shot of Ben Affleck's Batman from the Justice League era. And so I did a quote from it as in the portrait studio I built for Justice League, I captured this moment with Ben. No question, this man is Batman. Yeah, I really liked Ben Affleck's Batman. Now, that said, it was mostly because there were really cool scenes of him performing the character. Uh, Justice League served him better. The Zack Snyder Justice League, of course, than Batman versus Superman. Um, but nevertheless, I was intrigued by his performance and wanted to see, a full on story of this, and would have loved to have seen his Batman movie. Now, maybe I wouldn't. Maybe it would be really god awful. I will never know. It didn't happen. Um, and who knows what the ultimate outcome was supposed to be when they were originally going to restart the DCEU, and he was coming back. He showed up in the Flash movie, and see if they got an image of that of the. You've seen it. They had that. This must be too old. They don't show the scene of him and the Muschietti and the green screen, and he's filming this alternate ending to the film, and it was going to be this him lost in the multiverse. I don't know that would have gone on into his Deathstroke movie, but nevertheless, they had him back. So the whole thing is Zack Snyder throwing his hat in the ring again now that DCU's in trouble. Warner Brothers is up for sale. He's offering up his version of the characters as an alternative for them to whoever gets in charge to pursue. After being jerked around several times by this project for Ben Affleck, would seem unlikely. And the clock keeps ticking. You're getting older and stuff. He meant to have done this nearly 10 years ago, that kind of thing. Would he come back? For Zack Snyder, maybe he would. Any other situation of this, I doubt it. The Henry Cavill being talked to come do a Man of Steel 2, that he probably would do that. A full-on restoration of Snyderverse and those Justice League films, I don't know about that. Zack Snyder's openly said he would love to do Dark Knight Returns. Is what he's hinting at, that it wouldn't be a continuation of DCEU or those Justice League stories unless he would figure out some way to weave that into it. Maybe as, an HBO Max series. Allow. But okay, maybe Affleck could be talked into that. Could Henry Cavill be agreeable to play Superman in that story? Well, it's a Batman story. It's not a Superman story. Henry Cavill wants to do a Superman story. So if the deal would be, yeah, I'll do your Dark Knight Returns, but somebody's got to give me a Man of Steel 2. And could they work that out? And then there you go. That's what you get. Probably just two movies, If they did sort of a combination of Dark Knight Returns and Dark Knight Strikes Again. I would use very little of Strikes Again in the overall, but have the Justice League members who didn't show up in Dark Knight Returns, but they did show up in Strikes Again. Suppose they could tack that in there some kind of way, and Gal Gadot would have a role there. And there's more of a story there because Wonder Woman and Superman, they're a couple in that alternate potential future for the DC characters. So maybe they could do that. I don't know, but no, he's just going through his collection of photographs and reminiscing about past glories and stuff like that. No, because he teased these images from his Snyder Cut during the whole release the Snyder Cut movement and whatnot. I know people got a serious problem with Snyder when they say, no, it was all bots. It wasn't. They refer to this Rolling Stone article. Look at that math in there. They don't put any evidence forward either. They just have some woman of a firm they hired to look at it, and all she did was give a definition of what bots are. The actual math, you end up with, it was over 80% of the fandom engagement on Release the Snyder Cut was real. So not an impressive showing of bots, but just the idea that Zach would engage something like that when he began to think there's something to this, that this might actually work. Sure. And then I saw the film. I liked it. It's the best one he did of the 3 DC EU films, if you will, that he did. And and after having seen that, I said, yeah, I'd like to see where this Dark Side War is going. He's already leaked out what the plot would have been and all that. And the only thing I had a problem with was this romance between Batman and Lois Lane. I didn't care for that. The rest of it sounded pretty cool. Would have been fascinating to see. But, that's that. Would all of that get done? I'm dubious. Crazier things have happened, but but again, the clock continues to tick, and especially after Ben Affleck, he got screwed around. He had his own problems, of course, too, that contributed to all of that. And then when he comes back with the problem in the Flash movie and all that, and then they screw him again. I don't know. But yes, Zack Snyder might be the guy. If it's going to be a Zack Snyder project, he would trust Zack Snyder. So maybe that. But then there's Henry Cavill. I don't know. I don't know. There'd be a Man of Steel, a Superman movie. He would jump back in, but same situation almost. He got screwed around. He was brought in, and then they pulled the cape out from under him. It's going to have to be completely different people. So maybe this is it's all Zack Snyder. Then he might trust Zack Snyder too. But yeah, that was rough. So we'll see. Of course, it's tantalizing, intriguing, and all that sort of thing. But and it's a good shot. That's a good picture. So I don't know. We'll see. And then it's up to whoever wins, because now it looks like Paramount will win this bidding war. Well, what does Ellison want to do? That's what it ultimately boils down to. But apparently Comcast is still in play, so it could go that way too. But either way, what's your pitch? What's your plan? What can you justify this that it's worth the risk? That's a tough thing. So probably more. I keep going back to this. Everything gets scrapped, and they just do Batman movies. I guess the Matt Reeves Batman, depending on how that performs, would continue, and then they revisit this down the road with a brand new cast and all that, new universe and all that. So probably something like that. Anyway, there you go. Zack Snyder, such a tease. maybe it'll bear some sort of fruit. Yeah, it's happened before, so maybe. Whoops. Uh-oh. Well, looks like Netflix is not scoffing so much after all. So here we go. Once again, in Cosmic Book News, Netflix explores bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. Snyder first fans on alert. Well, how can they not be? Netflix is officially exploring a bid for Warner Brothers Discovery, and DC fans are buzzing again, especially Snyder fans. According to Reuters, the streamer has hired the same advisory firm that handled the Paramount Skydance deal and has been granted access to financial data as part of evaluating a possible offer. That means Netflix is seriously looking at Warner Brothers Studio and streaming assets. That includes DC. Well, yeah. The timing couldn't be more interesting. Zack Snyder has spent the last few weeks dropping behind the scenes images of Henry Cavill's Superman, Ben Affleck's Batman, and Joe Manganiello's Deathstroke. It's been one nostalgic hit after another, and fans have taken notice. Cosmic Book News has been told for months that everyone has moved on from the Snyderverse, including Snyder himself, and that Zack would only come back to do The Dark Knight Returns someday. What? Now, with Snyder suddenly teasing his DC era again at the exact moment Netflix is exploring WBD, fans are starting to wonder if he knows something the rest of us don't. Snyder, of course, has spent the last few years at Netflix building major projects. Well, they were expensive, but geez, I was really disappointed. I wanted them to be good, but now his Twilight of the Gods cartoon, all right, it's not the greatest thing ever, but it was better than Army of the Dead and Rebel Moon. So maybe he's working on a cop drama of some sort for them. Maybe that'll be cool. But anyway, and so he's got this working relationship with the company. So if Netflix were to end up with DC, Snyder would already be right there inside the building at the exact moment the DC universe enters a new era. Nobody is saying the Snyderverse is suddenly happening again. But then again, we've been told everyone's moved on, but the timing is impossible to ignore. At minimum, Netflix acquiring DC would blast open the creative doors. At maximum, a world where Snyder directs The Dark Knight Returns with aging versions of Batman and Superman isn't impossible. Yeah, yeah, but he keeps teasing Snyderverse stuff. I mean, I guess if he just kept it to Batman and Superman, then it'd be like, oh, see, he wants to get Affleck and Cavill to come in and do that. Yeah. Well, what does Deathstroke have to do with it? Anyway, the industry is shifting fast. Warner Brothers Discovery is on the blog. Netflix is circling. Snyder is posting DC images again. Fans are sensing momentum. Maybe it's just nostalgia. Or maybe Snyder's photos are a hint that he's positioning for something bigger. Either way, DC feels electric again. Yeah, but it's always the tantalizing rumors of what might be and that sort of thing. But, it is something, it's some interest that this seems to cast yet again a shadow over the current attempt, which is DCU. Well, DCU stumbled. That's the problem. So regarding James Gunn's DCU, well, Cosmic Book News has been told whoever ends up buying WBD will restart the universe. That depends on who, though. Now, the idea here being, well, if it goes to Netflix, Snyder's going to, have a big stake in it, maybe be able to restart his Justice League movies. At best, more likely, Dark Knight Returns. The Dark Knight Returns project could have been something he still could have done either way. Like it would have been an Elseworlds thing, a one and done thing. Problem is, DCU is struggling. So But to get bought by Netflix and he's still on good terms with them. Yeah. Yeah. However, with Paramount and everything, and with DeLuca being head of Warner Brothers Pictures, then his voice on this would matter. He's re-upped the contract with him and Abdi. So, and of course, his original plan was to continue the Snyderverse after the Flash. Of course, that was then. So it's still something of a stretch that Snyderverse could be brought back and continue intact. Again, crazier things have happened, So it's the bidding war is on for WBD, and it's not over yet. So already that Comcast is interested. Netflix, the rumor was, they're going to pass on this, and now not so fast.